Hey, well, welcome. Thanks so much for joining today. We're going to talk about a really important topic and a great time of the year to do it, and that is your 2024 goals. We're going to cover some great material, so I hope you can grab a pen and a paper. Some of the things we're going to cover is, of course, setting your goals. I'm really excited to ask you a question and knowing your why. I hope that you take that question really seriously. And it would be great if you could figure out how many leads you're going to need to generate, what your budget should be for marketing. And we're going to look at your close rate, whatever that is, good or bad, your average sale, whatever that is, it's going to be all over the map. That's fine. But I want to support you in setting goals for 2024. You're going to need some of those key numbers. So we'll break those down into monthly goals, and we're going to look at trends. I'm super excited because this is the great time of the year to plan for your goals. So, because it's so important, because if we were to meet a year from now, I really want to be able to hear you say, yes, we've hit our goals. Many of you know who I am. I've been in this industry for, I don't know, I think 28 years or so. Let's see. So, before we get started, I want to ask you to write these numbers down. I'm guessing you know some of these, but how many leads you need to book per month on average? You may know that one, you may not. If you don't know it, take a guess. And if you could write that down somewhere on a piece of paper in front of you, this is going to be a little bit of a kind of a workshop type of a thing. I think you'll get a lot more out of this training if you're writing these numbers down. And then if you know this one, it's going to be really helpful. What percentage of your leads booked turn into presentations? So of course, not all the leads that you book, and when I talk about book, I'm talking about scheduling. You have a date and a time, and at least one of the homeowners is expecting you to show up. And I trust that there's a little bit of screening, at least on your end, and that there's an eligible problem. So your companies vary as far as what a booked lead is, but date and time and a problem. So that's a book lead, but we know not all of those turn into actual presentations where you go to the house and you do a presentation and leave them with the price. There's a gap between that, and that's a number that you should know. And the next one is your net closing percentage. So I have here the net closing percentage on the leads that you priced. So that's what I count as a sit, a demo, or a presentation. If you put a number on the table, if you tell them a price, now you've done a presentation. So that's an important one to know. And then there's two more. What's your average job size in dollars? That one, I'm not talking about like most of the contractors that I know, they do some smaller jobs. Maybe it's like a crack repair, or I don't know, maybe it's a sump pump change or something. When I'm talking about the average job size in dollars, I'm talking about drain tile with a sump pump. And some companies, they'll only do four-wall jobs. A lot of companies don't. They just want to fix the problem. If it's one wall and a sump pump or something, that's what they're going to do. But I'm talking about drain tile jobs that address waterproofing issues. And then what is your average monthly revenue? I know that varies. Some months are better than others. Certainly, we're going to get into that. But on average, and a quick way to do it is, gosh, what'd you do in the last 12 months? And then divide that by 12. That's going to be your average. So if you know those stats, it's going to be really helpful as we go on. All right. So question, what is the hardest part about online lead generation? Had this conversation with many people. It's kind of unclear where to spend your budget. Sometimes people are excited about Angie leads, and then maybe Angie leads don't turn out to be all that they promised to be, or online leads, or Google ads. Google ads can be really expensive. Local service ads, it's another, online lead source. Facebook ads, more of an inexpensive lead with a bit lower quality because they weren't looking for you on Facebook. It was a disruptive ad. So many options, and it goes on from there. So, like, where do you put your budget? How do you track this stuff? And it's a major, major investment. I have a model here based on $3 million in revenue, and it doesn't matter if your goal is 500,000 for the year or 10 million or anything in between. But the model that I'm using is 3 million. And if you think about 10% of that, as an example, it might be more or less as far as how much or what percentage of your marketing budget goes towards revenue. But 10%, that's going to put you at, $300,000. Major, major investment. Sure would be nice to have a good plan. And what if you spend that much money and not much comes back? Like that's a nightmare. So you've got to have these things in place. You got to have goals and tracking systems and to be able to evaluate so you can make better decisions. And if you don't have a clear plan, you can overspend or you can underperform by underspending. So it's just so important to have the right plan in place. And one thought process that's out there, and I struggle with it. I can't accept it myself, but sometimes smaller waterproofers have the mindset of I don't set goals because when it rains heavy, you get a lot of leads and you do everything you can with it. And if you're in a drought, like there's not much you could do. So what's the point of setting goals if we have no control over that? And I don't like that at all. In my 20s, I worked in a retail cellular phone store. And the thing that drove me crazy about that is that when you're doing retail, like you're just sitting there waiting for someone to come in, someone to walk into the store. And it's such a passive approach. And as owners, I really think we need to be proactive and take responsibility for our marketing. And yes, the weather influences our industry. There's no doubt, but it doesn't mean we can't do anything. All right, so there's an amazing opportunity when you get these marketing dollars in sync that you could track and that you could influence and steer so that you can maximize your performance at the end of 2024. So, do you have goals? What are your goals? There's a question that I want to ask, and I hope you seriously consider it when we get there. I'm just preempting you a little bit, but before we get there, I have to go to this Harvard study. It's influenced me many times as a business owner. It's very, very famous. And there's two groups. Well, there's a group of people that were studied. And in 1979, the Harvard grads were interviewed, and 84% of them had no specific goals. 13% had goals written down, or sorry, they had goals, but they weren't written down. It's kind of like that. Hey, do you have goals? Yeah, I do. I'm going to do this. But, it was never written down. That's the second group. Then the third group, we know these people. Hopefully it's us. But the 3% had clear written down goals and plans that they wanted to accomplish. Now, what's fascinating about this study is 20 years later, they interviewed the same people. In that second group, that 13% that had goals, but they weren't written down, on average, they were making twice as much as that first group that had no specific goals. Now, that's huge in and of itself. But then the last part of this, the 3% that had clear written down goals and plans, on average, were earning 10 times more than the group that had no specific goals. That is something else. What does that tell us? We have to write our goals down, right? Really important. But, there's a lot of psychology in life. Our thoughts are so busy, and with all the neuroscience that's coming out and how people perform and get better results, this is just one of the many things that we could do that's going to help us perform better. And as humans, we kind of like to be where we're at. We're comfortable. We like to be stuck. And it's really good to be aware of that. And it's good to reflect and look at that and say, all right, I want to be here, but if I really want to be there, what steps do I have to take to get there? So the goal setting framework that I'm proposing is to have your written down goals and plans for 1 year, monthly, or quarterly and monthly. And there has to be a starting point and a stopping point, and a month is a good thing to do. Excuse me. All right. So that's the framework we're looking for. Here's my important question that I really want you to ponder. How would it affect your life if you hit your goals in 2024? For all of us, it's going to be different. I want to propose perhaps some motivations or some answers that might be relating to you. For some, you may just want a bigger retirement, which would give you more peace of mind and more security. So you don't have to be in survival mode and panic mode. For others, you may just want to be saving money for your kids' college. For others, you just might want to like buy braces for your kids. There could be other reasons, like maybe you want to pay your employees more. Um, Maybe you're tired of other waterproofing companies that you believe do inferior work to your work, and you just want to serve more people in your community. Like all those reasons could be all valid, but for you, I would ask you, whatever your answer is, to write that down. Write it on a piece of paper. I'll tell you why this is important. When I was a sales manager managing sales reps, we would run a contest and we would require our reps to take two pictures of whatever they wanted to win. Like we had a budget set aside. It was a decent sized prize money for like first, second, and third. And then they'd have to take a picture of what they wanted to win. And one picture went to me, and another picture, we told them to put it in their car because we wanted them to see what they were after as motivation as they drove to their leads. So I thought that was a good visual, and we're often motivated by visuals. So I hope you wrote that down. What I want to do now is I want to take you through how to come up with your goals specifically. And I don't know if you do this regularly or not, but this is something that I want to walk you through. All right. So we need to figure out, first of all, do you have your goal? A good way to figure out a goal is to take your last 3 years that you averaged and add 20%. So this is your net sales. Yes, there is sometimes a difference between gross sales and net sales. On occasion, you get a cancel. On occasion, you wrote someone up for finance and you can't get them approved. So I'm talking about net sales. So what's your average for the last 3 years? Get a number, then add 20%. Or just add 20% to what you did the previous year. You're going to need to figure out how many leads you need to book or schedule, and then how many leads you need to do a presentation on. I use the phrase demo or presentation. Some contractors use the word sit, all the same. It's when you go to a home and meet with the homeowners and do a presentation and leave a price. It's all the same. You probably know what your average sale is now, and you probably know what your net closing percentage is. Those are going to be important. All right, a lot of numbers. Please stay awake. We're going to do this, and we're going to come up with a specific plan. So this model is probably not for you because, hey, in case you're after 3 million in 2024, this is going to be perfect, but it's probably not for you. So you have to figure out what your annual revenue is, and all I want to do is walk you through how to get these numbers. So to start, I'm just starting with 3 million, and I'm taking the 12 months, I'm dividing it by 3 million, and on average, we're going to make an adjustment. On average, we're needing $250,000 in monthly revenue. All right. I know what the average sale is. For this example, I'm using 12,500 just to keep the math simple. It might be 8,000, it might be 10,000. We have several clients that have a very high sale, sometimes over 20,000. It's going to be different. It's not a right and wrong. It's your business. Let's just deal with where you're at and help you grow. For this example, I'm using 12,500. Your closing percentage, I set it at 20%. Should be realistic. That's a net closing percentage. All right, number of leads to schedule. Let's see. So I'm going to start with here, the bottom. Number of sales per month. We need 20 sales. This is really easy to figure out. It's 250,000 divided by your average sale. That gives you 20 sales. If you did that every month with this average job number, you would have 3 million at the end of the year. I know it sounds simple, but it's hard. It can be challenging. All right, how many presentations would you have to give? Well, if you need 20 sales, and your close rate is 20%, you're going to need 100 presentations every single month. You could do the math, divide by the number of working days in 21, 22, if you work Saturdays, 23. And that's how many sales you're going to need, or sorry, how many presentations you're going to need. All right. So then this last one, number of leads to schedule, you need 100 leads. And I am throwing this number in here. I think it's a very realistic number. Many companies have a higher number than this. And I'm saying only 80% of the leads that you schedule actually turn into presentations. So there is a gap between the number of leads that you schedule in your office. Great, we have you set up for Monday, 2 o'clock, whatever. But you and I know they don't always happen. They went with somebody else, they're not home, they went out of town, they rescheduled, whatever, something happens. So there's the gap. So these are the key numbers. If you could do these numbers, and I'm going to walk you through this because I probably went too fast, but if you could do this, you could set monthly goals with all the important categories, and that can guide you to your goal for the year end. This is just kind of another swing at this. 3 million divided by the 12 months, you get 250 on average. This you filled out, 12,500. We're just dividing the 250 by the average sale. We get 20 sales. You close 20%. If you close 25%, you're going to need less sales because then it's going to be 20 sales divided by 25%. But for the example, I'm using 20%. And then how many leads will be required? Again, 80%. If you're a company that you do presentations on 90% of the leads that you book, then you're going to want to put 90% in here. And again, it's going to lower the number of leads that you need to bring in. We'll talk about that, but those are just really important areas to pay attention to. All right, so this is just, this is like the third swing at this, right? So I'm just walking you through this. So in my 15 years of basement waterproofing, I had, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly goals. And they were every late November, early December, I'd map out the entire year. Some years I hit it, some years I didn't. At the end of each quarter, I'm adjusting budgets. I'm looking at what's working, what's not working. And that's how I ran my business. I mentioned this demo rate again. Here's what's true about companies. Companies pay attention to the numbers that matter. So what does that mean they pay attention? They talk about them on a regular basis. They post them on the wall. They set target goals. They incentivize and reward employees if they reach certain numbers. And why would they do that? Because these are supporting goals for the bigger picture, but you have to pay attention. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it. If it's just a number out there and you never talk about it, it won't be improved. So this is a number that you really need to pay attention to. This is another one. The person doing scheduling that really need to stay on top of the leads, they need to pay attention. If a lead doesn't happen right away, let's say a rep goes to a home and no one's home, like they have to stay on that lead and reschedule it. And I'm going to get into texting and email and online calendars and so on to reschedule those. And those work very effectively. You really need to tap into today's marketing automation to be effective. So these are the numbers that we're after. If you could figure this out, if you've already figured it out, more power to you. If you figured it out during this training, like you're a rock star, way to go. But figure this out. This is really important to figure out. We're going to take this a little bit further, and you might be thinking like, well, wait a minute. We do better in some months than in other months. Of course we do, because it's basement waterproofing, right? How I calculated these numbers, I took the average of what I did per month over the last 3 years. And that was a good way to set a goal. So if you look at this column here, the percentage of business that I did, if you added all these numbers up, it'd be 100. So typically I did about 5% of our annual revenue in January, 7% in February. March is always a good month. April was even better. There's a little bit of a lull in the summertime. Sometimes August was hard to get people to be there and they're preoccupied with starting school and so on. September and October was always a really good month. kind of building your backlog for the winter. December is always the most challenging month. So what you need to do is take that $3 million goal and just put it into these percentages, and that's how you're going to get this breakout. That's going to create a revenue goal for each month over here. And then you can do this math that I just took you through and work backwards. So what is your average sale? It's probably not 12,500. Could be less, could be more. What's your closing percentage? That's going to be different. That's how you work that. And this is what it looks like for me. It's going to be different for you. Like in Atlanta, I initially assumed it was going to be slower in there, and like, oh no, this is a rainy season. This is good weather for us. We get a lot of leads, so right around here for them. So this is part of having a monthly goal that's realistic. It's not always going to be the 250 you're going to do. In some months, you're going to do better. Can you predict on what months it's going to like get the monsoon downpour? No, you can't. You know, the old saying, fail to plan, plan to fail, right? If you don't have a plan, you're just riding the waves of the weather. All right, so here's a really interesting question. And this again is going to be different for everybody. How much of your revenue should go towards marketing? What percentage? Should it be 5? Should it be 10? Should it be 15? Should it be something different? I don't know. It depends on your comfort level. If you're conservative and it's very, very tight, and you like have a little machine, you kind of know what works and you want to stay there, you know, save your money, like keep it where it's at. If you are aggressive and you want to grow, and this is your time to, add crews and make money, you're certainly going to want to spend more than 5%. You're going to want to spend at least 10% and maybe even 15%. It just depends on your comfort level. It depends. I mean, for me, the more I was dialed in as to my lead sources and how I can control those and the results that I was getting, the more comfortable that I was in spending it. I did this formula, and in my time, I went to many owners' workshops. There'd be about 15 of us, and we would share notes and we would talk about different topics. And the one topic that I got into, and I had several owners call me to say, can you walk me through that again? And that is the profitability of adding a crew. So it's a great question. If you were to add a crew, one more in 2024, it'd be really interesting to know what your profit would be from that. And I operated for a while at a break-even level, meaning I had a salary that I was comfortable with and everyone was paid. I got a little extra distribution, not much, and that was it. And then I started doing the math and I was like, well, what if I added a crew? Like, what would happen? So I reran the numbers. And what's interesting is your general administrative on your financial statement, for the most part, is going to be the same. The only exception is if you're going to put there's a certain insurance, like some people put that in G&A. Your marketing expenses, it depends, right? Let's say sales reps get 10%, so that's going to be a 10% increase because you're going to have to pay that out. If you could figure out how to get those extra leads without spending an additional 10%, great. It's going to be even higher. But then your production or cost of goods sold and labor and all that, that's all going to increase. So I don't know what your numbers are. For us. It was about, well, I'll say it was in the 30s. You have some initial cost of adding a crew, or sorry, a crew cab for us, a big truck with equipment. We were using jackhammers, needed a compressor, some other basic stuff. And then you have your reoccurring costs. Don't leave out workman's compensation. For us, it was about 9.5%. So when you do the math like that, and you can keep general administrative the same for the most part, and add all that extra revenue, your profitability is going to go way high. And do yourself a favor and try to run those numbers, and you'll be shocked. Like you might say to yourself, gosh, I've been hanging out at that break-even level like way too long. So it depends where you're at. You might want to like, hey, I'm comfortable. I'm just looking to reduce my expenses, whatever. There's no right and wrong. It's up to you. In this example, if your net goal is $3 million and You're going to spend 10% of that for marketing for lead generation. That's $300,000. Divide that by 12, that's 25,000 a month. That's what it would take to spend, 10% of your revenue on marketing. Now, just kind of a quick note, I did the math here, and what I figured out on this model is a presentation is costing an owner $250, and a lead is costing $200. And that's not too far off. Uh, you could buy Angie leads for between like 55 and 75 in the basement waterproofing world. I've talked to many contractors that would say, half those leads you never get in touch with. And then some contractors do a great job of, getting in touch with 90% of those leads and then doing presentations. So, that's a lead source for you. Google ads, Facebook ads, local service ads, local SEO ads are free typically, but you typically need to pay an agency to um, maximize your coverage so you get more leads. So those are some options. So what should it be per month? You're basically just going to take this 300,000 and go back to the percentages of how much business you do in each month, and that would be your marketing budget. All right, so I talked about KPIs earlier, and generally speaking, people say there's three ways. People typically say there's two ways to make more money, get more leads and sell more. I'm just going to add an often overlooked area, get more leads, increase your revenue, convert more of those leads into presentations. So if you run a really tight ship with scheduling and you're really paying attention to your leads, and that goes everything from getting a web form to calling right away and maybe having some automation that says, thank you for filling out this web form. Here's our online calendar. We're going to be introducing something that will actually offer times that will look at your schedule and have a conversation with that person immediately so that they could book that lead right away, because there's clearly a lot of studies that say the faster you get in touch with that customer, the faster you book it, the greater chance that you're going to be able to go out there and do a presentation. Really important, especially when we're talking about numbers of, $200 a lead or 250 for a presentation. That's a lot of money just to, have a web form sit in an email, and a couple hours later you give it a call and maybe you'll get in touch with them. But you really want to, this is a kind of a hidden area, asking the question like, how can we convert more leads into presentations and then close more? So I used to run the math of like, so what if we're closing at 20%, like what would my revenue be if we closed at 25%? It's a jump, but what would the math be on that? So good questions to ask. All right, 6 ways to hit your revenue goal. Know your why. So earlier I asked, what would it mean for your life if you hit those goals? What would it mean? And I hope you wrote that down. You probably have heard Simon Sinek talk about the why. It's one of the top 5 viewed TED Talks. If you have 15 minutes, you want to be motivated, watch this, and it's pretty powerful. It talks about Apple. All right, websites that convert. I talked about this earlier in the year. I think I touched on it last month, but kind of some similar thinking. If you have 1,000 visitors and you convert, I don't know, 10% and you get 100 leads, what would a website look like? How would your business be affected if that website only converted, 5%? Or what would that website look like in your business if you converted 15%? So you're going to want to make sure that that website has all the best practices in it for convertibility. And an often overlooked area is your mobile site. A big one is click to call. I've noticed, nowadays most everyone has click to call on a mobile phone, but sometimes they have click to call, but it's kind of hidden. It's a little bit hide and seek thing. Like it's not obvious. So one of the ways to make a website very effective is to make everything obvious. Like talk to people like they're in 3rd grade. So you have to say click to call. Don't just show a number and then I have this conversation that, no, hit the button or hit the phone number. It works. Well, not everyone, you and I might know that, but not everyone knows to do that. So it's just, I say this a lot, internet marketing, it's 1,000 little things. There's no magic wand I can give you, and it's going to double your business. You have to just pay attention to these little things, and they add up and they turn into big things. Some quick items about your website. Gosh, this is a huge one. I can't tell you. I was talking to a prospect a week ago, and they were at a 5 out of 100 from Google Page Speed Insights. It's a free tool. If you type in Google Page Speed Insights, it'll tell you how fast your website is. And I tell you, so many people overlook mobile. Let me ask you, what do you do on your phone when you are waiting for a slow loading website? You leave. Exactly. And that's what people do. And you don't want to spend a lot of money trying to generate leads to get people to your website and then they leave because they didn't see the number or call or fill out the form and so on. People are drawn to authentic images. Get rid of any kind of stock photos. I know most people are like, I don't want to put me on there. I'm not that kind of a person. If you put yourself on there, people can see who you are and they tend to trust you. There's a subconscious connection. Don't be like the Wizard of Oz and kind of give them real views and real shots of who you are and your staff and your jobs and so on. Put, online reviews on your homepage. Um, I know people trust them more on Google, but get them on your homepage. You want that whole thing just to reek of credibility and trust. Make sure your number is easy to see in the top right-hand corner. Add credibility symbols, BBB, Angie, and all sorts of any kind, like Basement Health Association, any kind of certifications that you have. Are there calls to action? Here's what to do next. Call us now. Click here. Tell people what to do. Do you have chat? Chat is becoming more and more important. Would you rather text somebody or talk to them on the phone? For me, I'd rather text them. And the same is true. People like to do chat. Some people like to talk on the phone. They kind of have questions and answers. And they don't want to wait for someone, right? But not everyone is the same. I like to look at lead generation like you're fishing. If you're in a boat and you have one pole and you have a worm on the end, you have a chance of catching a fish. If you had 10 poles with all different bait, you probably have a greater chance of catching fish. And chat is just another way. It's another poll, and some people like it, and you could suck them in. And don't be intimidated by it. You turn it off when you get there, and you turn it on when you get to work, and you turn it off at the end of the day. So you're not going to create that, hello, is anyone there? And you're frustrating somebody. It's not like that. And leverage marketing automation. There's a lot of technology you can take advantage that's going to pull these leads in more for you. If you want a free resource, go to Rainmaker for Contractors, and it says resources, and there's one about website conversions, a whole bunch of information there. Just, the key to success is taking action. So if you could write down 1, 2, or 3 items that you need to take action on, that would be great. And then do it. Take action. All right. So customer review culture, gosh, so important. I talked to somebody yesterday about 4 p.m. and they thought a 4.2 rating was good. And I look forward to following up with them. But I think your competition has a 4.8, 4.9, or 5.0, and maybe you do as well, which is awesome, which is wonderful. But I'm going to encourage you to get lots and lots of reviews. It matters. It matters for lead generation, and it matters for your closing percentage because people trust companies that have a very high rating with lots and lots of reviews. There's this, like, do the math. If you have a 4.0, then there's an 80% chance that they're going to do a good job and you're going to be happy. But do you want to deal with a company that's got an 80% chance of doing a great job, or you want to deal with one that's got like a 95% chance, or maybe 100 if they have a 5.0? So that's how people think. So here's just some tips on how to get more reviews. Are you asking for reviews 90% of the time when the job is completed? Not an email or a postcard, 3 days later. You have to be way more efficient. You're just going to get way more reviews when you're standing in front of them. Internally at your company, Do you have a goal that's posted on the wall? Like, let's say you have 100 reviews, and the end of the at the end of January, let's say, you're wanting 115. Is that posted on the wall? And do employees know what kind of fun contest or something they're going to win? Maybe you're going to take them out to lunch, or maybe you incentivize your employees. Don't ever incentivize a customer, right? You don't want to do that, but do you incentivize employees to get reviews? So that's part of the game plan. And to create positive energy when you start any kind of meetings or staff meetings, one of the things that employees crave, Harvard has done a lot of documentation on this, is acknowledgement. So what a better opportunity for you to read a review and acknowledge every person's hand that touched that. So it could be someone took a phone call, someone processed the order, maybe they got banking lined up, someone scheduled the job, the foreman that did the job, the sales rep that sold the job. All those things, I just named like 5 people that could be acknowledged by just reading one review. And in their review, they maybe only mentioned the foreman, but if all those hands didn't touch that lead, it wouldn't have happened. So everyone played a significant part. So post them on the wall. I in my company, I took reviews and I blew them up, and I like made quotes on the wall, and it's something that we could be proud of. And so when you come in the office, you see these reviews, and it just creates a positive vibe. So those are just some tips on how to get customer reviews. There's actually 2 or 3 good trainings on how to get customer reviews. So we're on now number 4. Number 4 is going to be increase your closing percentage. So let me ask you, how are you investing into your sales reps? And if you're the only sales rep, then I'd ask the question, how are you investing into you? What can you do to improve your sales? We get into habits. I've hired and trained many, many sales reps. I've worked with a lot of owners as well. Here's a line that sometimes people say, I don't have a presentation. I just kind of navigate my way. It kind of depends on what I'm being presented with. And truth of the matter is, like, everyone has a presentation. We're creatures of habit. Yes, there might be modifications based on, well, I try to get the kitchen table, but usually the customer just brings me into the basement and they just show me and I just start talking. Okay, well, that's your presentation. So you have steps. So you walked in the door, there's a certain greeting, you went into the basement, who's leading who, what are you asking? This is all part of your presentation. These are all steps. So it's good to like diagnose your presentation, take it apart. Is this what we want in this section? What are we looking for in this section? What are we looking for in this section? All these kind of things to be able to look at it. Again, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. And they're great ways to diagnose your closing percentage. Another, great ways is listen to Audible books. You can't say you don't have time driving around that you can't play Audible books, or even there's sales podcasts that you could play. Or if you're a reader, of course, there's endless books on this topic. Or you go into conferences, like even one a year would be great to go to a conference and come back with like 3 things that you're going to apply. I've done a lot of training on sales. Effective Leadership is the website that we have. Partner and I do training a couple times a year. But one of the fun exercises we do is we say, no matter what your prices are, just increase by 1,000. And we get a little bit of pushback and we say, just try it for a week, increase your prices by $1,000. And we just want you to see what happens. And everyone basically says like, nothing was different, like nothing changed. No one fell off their chair. No one said that's crazy. It's all that. And if you're thinking, gosh, if I lower my prices, then I'm going to sell a lot. You may sell the person that is, more money motivated, but it's more important to add value. And there's a certain way to do that in your presentation, which I won't go into. But the bottom line here is, what are you doing to try to increase your closing percentage? All right, number 5 is, are you tracking your key performance indicators or your most important numbers? We talked about several here, the number of leads booked. We talked about the number of leads that actually turn into presentations, number of presentations, your closing percentage, your average sale, your monthly goal, and also your marketing budget. Those are all really important ones to track. Decision making What's true about it is when all the information is in front of us, decisions are way easier to make. Decisions are difficult to make when you don't have the information. So if you can position yourself to have that information, you put it in front of you and you look at it and you say, okay, it's very obvious that whatever, this lead source is not working for us. Either we don't know how to close it, or we're not booking them or something. Or you look at your reports and you say, we have a real issue with booking leads, but presentations aren't happening. That could be a question for you. We're way overspending in this area. Why is that happening? Or this was my favorite. This was transformational, actually led to a career change for me. It's part of the reason why I sold my basement waterproofing company is there's this incredible lead source that is costing us not a lot of money and we're bringing in a lot of sales. Like we need to exploit this. And for me, it was internet marketing. But if I didn't have that data on that sheet, I wouldn't be able to like zero in on that. Referrals is the best, right? Like what are you paying for referrals? Probably not too much, like probably not more than $100 a referral, but your closing percentage and your average sale on referrals is probably off the roof. Like that's something you're going to want to know. All right. And then this is a toot for us, and that is work with an agency that specializes in your industry. And for us, we've been doing this for 13, 14 years. We know the ins and outs of the industry. We have a proven track record. I think you're going to get a better result versus a generalist that's trying to figure out your industry. So, what are three things that you can, what are three things that you could work on? Just as we're flying through this information here, just make a couple notes and then come back to them and take action on these. Successful business owners, they take action. All right, so some key trends. I'll cover this briefly. This is where I think more internet marketing is going, shifting from phone conversion to message conversion. I mentioned earlier, would you rather text or do a phone call? More and more leads are going to be booked through messaging or online calendars or even AI. More authentic images. Try to pull the curtain behind and allow people to see who you are, who your staff is, what your jobs look like before and after. Video, and then more video. Interview your employees. Ask them, why do you like this job? How is it rewarding to you? What's the culture like here? Just short videos. People want to know who they're working with. If you could record a customer at the end of the job and get permission that you could post that on the website. Imagine if you had 20 like short, I'm talking when I talk short, like 30 to 60-second videos of happy customers at the end of the job. Hey, what was it like to get your basement waterproof by ABC Waterproofing? Oh, it was so great. The crew was so nice. They met with me in the morning. They were on time. They checked in with me. Their cleanup is amazing. And those things sell. Imagine if you had 20 of those on your website. That's a convincing story. And that's what people want to see. Omnipresence with Google and Facebook and artificial intelligence. Congress has pulled Google and Facebook in front of them and asked them questions that they didn't really like answering. So they had to dial back some of the information that they have on us. They used to give us marketing agencies access to probably way too much information. So they had to pull that back. But their algorithms are still really good at finding what customers are interested in. And they're good at putting ads in front of the right people when you tell them to. So take advantage of that. And as I mentioned before, marketing automation, emails, text, online, calendars, AI. I would say emails to text, night and day difference. Like people love texting. We're starting to do reactivation campaigns where we text old customers, see if they're interested for some of our clients. And, most of them are not. Most of them don't respond. We certainly get more like stop responses than yes, I'm interested. Hey, do you want any leads that of old presentations that you've done maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year ago? Like not everyone takes action when you go to the home. They get their 3 estimates, they get busy, it didn't rain, and so they're good. And guess what? Rain's on the way and they still need to take action. They get a text saying like, hey, we have a sale going on. Is this something you're still interested? Yes, give me more information. Now you just created a lead. Those are all ways to generate leads. Those are all trends. At Rainmaker, We focus on, you have to have a website that converts. Local SEO is going to be your number one traffic source. Guess what? All that stuff is free. I know our contractors love free leads, Google ads, Facebook ads. These are for the bigger companies. You're going to need to spend money on these. Your reputation affects everything. To nurture the leads, you need social presence. You have to have tracking in place. We do a lot of call tracking. You have access to all the phone numbers. That's kind of how we, in a quick nutshell, that's what we focus on. So what are your top 3 internet marketing initiatives that you need to implement to hit your 2024 goal? Good time to write those down. So I hope you learned something. I hope that you are taking something that you could implement and start working on right away. That's going to be the key to success. Set your goals for 2024. You're going to, all those things. You're going to need a website that's optimized. You're going to need leads. How many leads do you need every month? And how much should you spend every month to hit your goals? And are you implementing those latest trends? You don't want to live in 5, 10 years ago. Things are changing. We have to always be updating what we're doing to stay on the cutting edge and develop a customized plan based on who you are and where you're at and be realistic. There's no sense in hitting these lofty goals that are unrealistic. Um, so that's what we covered. If you need help in any way, if you even want us just to look at your online presence, we're happy to do that. There's no cost. It's very, very thorough. We're here to help you win. Thank you for your time. I hope it was beneficial.